ADHD Babes, the podcast, a podcast hosted by the ADHD Babes community for the community. Please note, nothing mentioned during the podcast is meant as a diagnosis. If you believe you have ADHD, please seek professional advice and visit or join ADHDbabes.com for help with diagnosis. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. And now, you're listening to the next episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast.
Hello, welcome to a new episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. Thank you to everyone who's joined us by listening so far. Don't forget to follow so you never miss an episode, and also rate, review and share so that others can find us too. Today's episode is hosted by me, Charlene, and
me, Tyler. And today we're going to be discussing creative and chaotic life as a creative and entrepreneur. Joining in on the discussion, we are joined by our guests, ADHD Babes, Niquelle and ChiChi. So, babes, you're no longer strangers to the podcast, so that our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Can you introduce yourself, your pronouns, and a little bit about what you do? ChiChi, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is ChiChi Anu. My pronouns are she, they, ella, and hers. Ella and hers. Ella is just her in Spanish. I am an inspirational keynote speaker, opera singer, neurodivergent advocate, and self-described opera comedian. I share inspirational personal stories and sing operatically at conferences and other organizational events. And I also do private concerts. I support organizations for neurodivergent people like ADHD Babes and also neuroqueer. And finally, I do a lot of silly things, both singing and otherwise, on my YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel. So you can find me on YouTube and other platforms at ChiChi Anu. So that's ChiChiEnu. Thanks.
Amazing. And now, Niquelle, can you introduce yourself, your pronouns, and a little bit about what you do?
Yep. Hi, I'm Niquelle LaTouche. I'm an artist and an educator, but I'm also a producer. I mainly work within the kind of UK, London landscape, but I'm also kind of work on international projects. My main focus right now is kind of events production and community building. So that's what I do in the meantime, and everything you can find under Niquelle L. So NIQUELLE_L on everything.
Thanks, guys. So today's episode is for World Creativity and Innovation Day, which feels fitting because we are talking about building a creative business while navigating life with ADHD. So there is a narrative, I'm sure that we've all heard, that floats around about ADHD and creativity. You've probably heard it, that ADHD is a superpower, that ADHD brains are wired for innovation, and that people with ADHD are natural entrepreneurs. And there is some truth in that. Many people with ADHD are creative. Many of us do end up working for ourselves, but we want to talk honestly about why that happens and why it can actually be a powerful path rather than a fallback. For a lot of Black women and non-binary folk with ADHD, traditional employment can be restrictive. Fixed hours, rigid systems, constant performance monitoring, and expectations that do not match how our brains work can make work feel harder than it needs to be. So entrepreneurship can offer something different, more autonomy, more flexibility, more space to work in bursts, follow ideas, and build around interests rather than forcing ourselves into structures that ultimately drain us. So yes, building a business with ADHD definitely comes with some challenges, but it also comes with some strengths. We've got creativity, fast thinking, problem solving, and the ability to build something from nothing. So in this episode, we are talking about what it really looks like to build a creative business with ADHD, the realities, the struggle, the strengths, and the why. And despite everything, many ADHD entrepreneurs do not just survive, they thrive. Why so many ADHD creatives take the leap into business, and why that leap can be one of the smartest decisions they ever make.
Let's start with how many of us actually arrive at entrepreneurship. A lot of ADHD entrepreneurs do not start businesses because they want to escape work. They do it because they want to work well, in ways that make sense for them. So let's talk about that. When you think back to how you started your business or creative work, what pulled you towards working for yourself, ChiChi?
Well, for me, I had this ever since I was a kid. I wanted to be, what did I say? I wanted to be a actress, model, and flight attendant.
Nice.
um, and we called it air hostess because I was born in Nigeria, and I always liked being in front of people, and I love the attention, and so it was kind of a natural thing for me to want to be a singer, but I think so. I did want to be a singer, and then I fell in love with opera when I moved to the US. However, I'm also a Nigerian, so there was tension between a traditional path and the creative path. So it took me a long time to really step into my own and be true to myself, even though I did a lot of things around singing, and I even went back to school to get a degree in music. But it was a struggle. It was a struggle, and for me, traditional employment has never made sense to me. It just has not. I've done it. I've worked for corporate, government, an association, and there were moments where I would do okay, but for the most part, it just didn't make sense to me. And then I had this desire for the creativity, for the singing. So that's how it happened.
So, what was it about traditional employment that felt like limiting or uncomfortable for you?
I mean, that's a great question. For me, like, I did not understand why everybody was so pressed. Like, I just, why? Because I've never worked in an ER or anything like that. Okay. So I've worked like as I worked as a legal assistant, and it wasn't like we were doing like death row cases. No, this was for an association, for events, and everybody was so pressed. And then I went and worked as a legal assistant for a big company, and then a training specialist. And it was just this like, oh my God, we have to. And I was, why? Are we curing cancer? Are we curing cancer? We're not curing cancer.
Why
is
are we all so pressed?
You know, and then the rigidity, of the schedule.
It's so true. Yeah.
It didn't make sense. I understand a rigid schedule if it's necessary.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessary. So why are you making me come in when my job is better done at home, or like I have to come in at night? Like, and everybody was so like afraid and I'm somebody I'm very open. I think that's part of my ADHD. I'm an oversharer, proud oversharer. And this whole thing, you have to like play politics and for the boss. I was bad at that shit. I hated it. Ugh. And I don't think that is how human beings are supposed to live.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying about the schedule thing? So a lot of my work is built around schedules, and I don't even know how it happened, how I've fallen into this, because I can't with schedule. And then the reason, but that people do get so pressed about it, about like, something going late to a printers, and you're like, no one's going to die from this. No one. It's like, we're not going to, like, the world is not going to set on fire. Like, everyone just needs to calm down.
Yes.
We need to calm down. It doesn't need to be like some meeting, some follow-up meeting to discuss the schedule being out of schedule by the 1.5 days, and now it's a probationary thing. Do you know what I mean? All of these kind of things, and you're just like, please.
Yeah.
If only they knew how late it really was.
But also on the back of that, I was going to say, like, people being so stressed makes me more chilled.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, okay, I'm really stressed. We've got to get these drawings out. We've got to do this. Why is this not done? And I'm just like,
yeah, I get that, because I pull back too. Sometimes
I don't know.
I'm like, calm down. I can't.
It'll get done when it gets done. But you stood over me being like, "Mom, we got to get these out." I'm just like, okay, shut down. This is going to take as long as it takes if you want it done properly.
I do that in my life too. Like,
I'm
not trying to get asked, but I do that. It's just too much sometimes.
I was just like, I actually need just a calm environment to get this done quickly. But then also at the same time, like sometimes, like if I'm also one of those people that when it's like, oh, there's a deadline approaching, and then it's like high stress. Then I'm like,
Yeah.
smashing it. Let's
Yeah.
go. But also at the same time, it's just like, if you're trying to stress me out, I'm not going to get stressed, and therefore I'm not going to do the work. So
No.
we may as well just work on time that works for me. And if that is the slow train that day, that is the slow train, and you got to get some more people on it, I'm afraid.
It needs to be a stress of your own choosing, though, I guess,
Yeah.
isn't it? Not when it's because there are obviously with
Imposed.
my ADHD, like my brain is ruled by, you know, when the rent is due tonight, I can usually like snap into action. But then again, that's my the stress of my choosing. If someone else puts it on me now, I'd be like, well,
Listen, yeah, I'm not paid
here
enough.
anyway. I'm not there anyway. Like I'm no, exactly. So those times, it's like you need to chill.
It's funny you
But
said
obviously,
about
if
stress.
it's the stress of my own choosing, then you know, yeah,
That I think was a big part of what brought me into entrepreneurship.
yeah,
I think I witnessed a lot of people who were around me that were in stress that was not of their choosing.
yeah.
And I said, I
yeah,
never
that's
want
it.
to work like that. And I never want to
No,
be in a job that somebody else can kind of dictate my stress workload.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
it's not that I haven't worked in the kind of 9 to 5. I actually have always had a portfolio career. So I've always
yeah,
had both, and had spurts where I'm like fully freelance. Like now I'm fully freelance. But I think when I was 17 was when I actually started being self-employed. And it was when I also saw my dad transfer from going from a 9 to 5 structure working for another company to then transition into owning his own business.
Oh, okay
And
then.
seeing that transition,
Seeing
but
that
also
happen.
seeing the
Yeah,
fear of what
yeah,
leaving
Yeah.
what was supposedly more stable and more structured and more, which is a lie,
yeah,
might I
yeah,
add. But it was just more also like understanding so many stigmas that he was kind of renegotiating and seeing how much turmoil that caused in him. And then thinking for myself, like now making a choice of like, okay, wanting to work for myself. I started tutoring. That was my first job.
okay,
And seeing the amount of freedom it gave me, the amount of ability to kind of dictate my own timetabling, set my own rates. And since that point onwards, I've always had some sort of side hustle.
nice,
And that
nice.
was where I guess the entrepreneurial spirit kicked in.
Came in.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah,
also because I'm raised in a Caribbean household and academics was prioritized. So anything that was within the art space for me, I had to fund myself. When I played
yeah,
basketball, I had to pay my own subs.
right,
So I
yeah,
had to find other means to do the things that were like extracurricular.
yeah,
And then that kind of encouraged me always having like a dual career.
yeah.
That
And
makes sense.
starting at 17
Late.
as well is like, yeah, super young as well. So do you think because you started off actually so early, so you kind of had that confidence quite early on as well? So it was a case of like you never had to look back, I guess, as well once you had the
Yeah.
taste of it.
Kind of, but you're still battling the stigma of what
Oh, of
people
course, yeah,
and society are
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
you
sure.
is the right way to do it. Like
yeah.
when people ask, what do you do? I hate that question.
I know.
Yeah.
How should we even answer it these
How do
days?
you
Who
answer
knows?
that?
I
I
don't
do
know.
so
I
much,
don't know.
so little at the same time, guys. Just don't worry about it.
You
I,
know,
I
and
just
I
crack
think
on.
that's always been hard when you're a
Yeah,
dabbler and you
yeah,
kind of do lots
yeah,
of things.
yeah. Professional dabbler.
Everyone's nodding
Yeah,
like, yep. Yeah. I
but that
mean,
was the pull, that
I hear
stress.
that. No, I totally hear that. And, I really struggled with that self awareness and self determination, of no, this doesn't work for me. This works for me. I was somebody who, I knew what my desire was, and I did do stuff on the side. That's just the nature of with singing and the arts, like all this stuff on the side, like you said, Niquelle. But I really struggled with this idea of I can only really make money from a job, because that's what everybody said. And at that time, I didn't have a lot of connection to my true self, a lot of self determination. And I did what I was supposed to, quote unquote, to do. So, yeah, I totally hear that. And what I'm understanding now is, first of all, as an ADHD neurodivergent person, if I'm not interested, and I wish I knew this for all those years, because I was diagnosed like at 43, I think. I wish I had known this. I have an interest-based nervous system. So if I don't care, which I did not, none of the jobs I ever did that I really care about, if I don't care about it, I will not do well.
Yeah.
So
No,
I will not be in the
100%.
job to make all kinds of, there was one job I made some money. I think it was interesting, and I like the people. That helps when I like the people. But in the end, I wasn't going to be there 10, 20, 30 years because I just don't
No.
care. And
Yeah.
I wish
Yeah,
I'd known that, because then I would have been like, let me do the things I care about, because actually money comes from doing the things that you care
that's
about
it, isn't it? That's it.
and doing them, continuing to do them. Like, I
Yeah.
wish I'd known that. So
I can't
Yeah.
imagine, back in the day, you would get some people that had worked for like a council, or like wherever it was, for like 20, 30 years. Like they would just stay there. And like, I can't, like, I mean, unless you were really, like, you really, really, really loved whatever you were doing for those 20, 30 years, like, I just can't imagine. Like, if I don't care, like you were saying, if I just don't care, then it's not going to work out at all.
Mm-hmm.
About 20, 30 years. You get
Yeah.
about 2 to 3 years. About 2 to 3 anything, basically. But yeah, but you do have to 100% for us to get ourselves into gear, I should think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because
Is
even
this
when you
the
said the
thing?
care, sorry, go on.
No, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say this is the thing. Like, I hear it quite a lot with people with ADHD. Like, if they're doing a job that they're not interested in or whatever, they like jump from job to job, kind of
Exactly.
thing. And that,
Yeah.
like, I've not necessarily had that experience, but not that I've always worked in jobs that I've found really interesting or whatever. But it's more kind of like the job that I've done. Like, I worked in a theatre for 10 years, like literally 0 hours kind of thing, um, doing front of house. But that was like every 6, 7 weeks, there's a new play on. We have to do tech rehearsals again. So it's constantly changing. Obviously, when the shows are on, you've got different audience members coming in. It's in the
Mm.
middle of the city centre, so you could have some, like, there was one time, it was like a petty thief that like ran through, and it was like utter chaos, and it's literally like, okay, this is an exciting day, and then you're talking about that for the next week, and then the week after you've got, oh, the tills
Changes
aren't
again.
working. It's suddenly like these tiny things that no one really cares about happened, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, this is exciting. So I ended up working there for like 10 years, but that was like whilst I was at uni, and I'd just come home and work a shift, or like I wasn't there every single day, but that's like a long time to have one job. And then the other job that I've had is being an architect, and I've worked in the same practice for 10 years, but I've been in the Manchester office and the London office, and then come back to the Manchester office, and I've done it whilst I was in uni. And then I had 1 year when I was on maternity leave, and then came back part-time, and then I'm in the office 3 days a week, and then I teach for part of the week. So it's kind of like now, if I was in a position where I was like, actually, I kind of don't find it as interesting, or I'm not as like, I don't like the idea that I'm just sat in an office all the time. Like, that's my
Yeah.
general thing. So I'm always like, do work for a bit, and then I'm stood up chatting to someone, and then I'm sit back
Yeah.
down, and then I'm like, oh no, I needed to get something from the kitchen, and then stand up again, come back to my desk, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot something else, and then like go back again. So I spend most of the time just
Yeah.
wandering around, do some work. Like, oh shit, I've not done anything today. Or I'll
Yeah.
usually do stuff, but like that kind of like, oh, now there's a pressure on. And then I'm like, oh, actually, the thing that keeps me coming back is obviously because it is like generally quite stable. But the thing that I find exciting is that I'm working on loads of different projects. But then I think at the end of the day, I'm still just doing this office job, which is the thing I don't necessarily like or can
Like,
get on board
yeah.
with.
Yeah.
But outside in my head, I just treat it like 9 to 5, and then I go home and I do kickboxing, I'm teaching, I do this, like I'm doing all of these other things, and everyone's always like, "Are you not so like tired and busy and like we've got all this stuff?" But it's kind of like I have to do all these other things, or I do like freelance graphic design, like do pottery, all of that stuff I have to do in order for me to stay in this like 9 to 5 thing, which is a creative role,
Yeah.
doing architecture fundamentally. But actually, when I boil it down in my head, I'm not necessarily like scratching the creative itch that I have. Because
Yeah,
in my head, I
that's it.
just view it as I'm sat at this desk and I'm
Yeah,
tapping away on the computer, even though that's what I've
yeah.
been doing for the like 13, 14 years. In my head, I don't see that as like the creative. I like doing things with my hands. I like talking to people like all the time. So I'm not necessarily, I don't think I necessarily fit in that like ADHD subgroup of I have to jump from job to job. It's more I
Yeah.
just collect more and more and more on my plate, if that makes sense. So yeah, I always find it really interesting when people are like, no, I can't do that, so I'm going to try this one instead. Whereas I'm really like, I find it absolutely terrifying being like, no, I'm going to quit. I have no idea how you hand in a notice. I've never done it. Like I've never done it.
It's so funny you say that because I feel like we've had very similar careers. I've always had that one fixed thing, which is usually a 9 to 5 employment type of situation. Usually in education. I'm an English specialist, so primarily been in secondary schools and supplementary proofs and all of that. And then in my evenings, my weekends, I'd fill with all the other things that literally kept me sane. And it was the balance between the two. And there was always this confusion of how could you fit all of these things in the week and how do you have the energy for it. But it's actually quite interesting because my last role that I went into, I was a head teacher.
Okay.
And it was in a theatre space and it had all of the lovely things that I require usually for a job to keep me, which is like the level of flexibility, things refreshing itself, continually problem solving, feeling like there was an element of challenge in it, newness to it, because it was like building a school from scratch, which was a lot. But it was actually a values level that didn't agree. And I'm very like justice oriented in my being. Like if my values don't align with a space, that is probably been my only reason I've left anywhere, any job.
Yeah.
If there's on a values level, they're not congruous. That can easily, like if you're don't care about the population of people or there's a that doesn't jar, I could leave any job with those kinds of morals. The interest part, I could be bored in a job and no, it's just a job. And it's one of the things I share with my students all the time. There's a book I read called Big Magic, and she really tears apart 4 words, which I think we really need to demystify for young people, which is a job, a career, a hobby, and a vocation. And a lot of the times we don't think about our hobbies or our vocation early enough. We think about careers. We talk about careers even in school. Who has a career at 14? No one. But that's like a long game. And I think when I started to think about what skills I just naturally had from like just being the firstborn daughter, for instance, which comes with tons of things.
Yeah.
And then seeing where those skills can play rather than what job title do I fit, which I'm a 90s baby. Every job we were told was going to be the job when we went uni crumbled in recession. So it was a lie. Like, if I was going to wait for a job title, that whole white collar path crumbled while I was being educated. So for me, I'm finding matching what skills are most like what I want to sharpen the most, what I want to play in most, or what I feel I haven't done more. And then finding things that go with those skills as opposed to like what job title, because that's a bigger search and the internet is overwhelmingly overloaded now. So to try and find a job based on the title for me is just, it's an abyss.
It's impossible. But I also think like in my head, I don't know if it's like part ADHD or part like autism, whatever, but I'm very like, I do not want to do anything that I do not think I would be good at. But then in my head, I'm kind of like, what am I really good at? And then I'm like, right, do I have the time to just be like, okay, I'm going to quit this thing that is giving me some kind of stability to then just be like, you know what, I'm going to try doing that and see how I go. And then actually be like, I actually don't like that. So now I'm going to go back over here and try that again. And then it's just like, da, da, da. And in my head, I'm kind of like, maybe I should have done this when I was like 18. But then also at the same time, it's like, if I had done that at 18, I may not be doing the things that I am doing now, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So then I'm
sure.
kind of like, actually, are there things that I can borrow the skills that I've already got and kind of like I've done this like segue into education and like teaching at uni, doing architecture because I like talking and I like sharing like the things I know, but also I like uplifting people kind of thing. But
Mm.
also at the same time, I like this kind of like, I wouldn't say bossy, but like I've got a vision. I want to do this. It's like, but I had like a random foray into like lighting design, set design, all of that kind of stuff. Like I have this vision. I want to work with you and we can like work together. But then I'm kind of like, is it too late for me to just quit it all and go into like creative direction or like art direction kind of thing? And I know it's not, but in my head, I'm like, I don't even know how you handed a notice. So how am I going to just be like, you know what? Let me just switch into this. And I think it is also there's this fear of like, well, but what if I'm not good at it? What am I then going to do on the back of that? But then also at the same time, I have this acute thing where I'm like, if I'm not good at it, then I'm literally going to be like, well, what do I do now? Because if the thing I've been training for like, half my life, I now no longer want to do, or I don't feel like it's like scratching the itch that I felt it was. And I'm also not doing the thing that I thought maybe I could give that a go based on the skills that I've got. Then I'm like, well, where do I go from there? And then it's kind of like, oh,
Just to say, so for many Black women and non-binary folk with ADHD, this decision can be shaped by more than just work style. It can also be about wanting autonomy, safety, and control over how we show up professionally. So entrepreneurship is not about opting out. For many ADHD brains, it's about opting into a way of working that allows creativity, flexibility, and growth. It can be a space where strengths are amplified rather than constantly managed. So I guess to you, Niquelle, how did being a Black woman or non-binary person influence your decision to work for yourself, if at all?
I mean, yeah, you can't ignore that the professional environment is massively influenced by kind of our identifiers being racialized as a Black woman and being a woman. You have a double disadvantage. I'm in the UK, I'm in London, we're a minoritized group, but I think I always get a very interesting interview experience because my name on paper looks like a French name, and the assumption isn't that I am who I am when I turn up, unless obviously now they Google and whatever. But I've had a lot of blind recruitment experiences where I turn up and I'm not the person they think I am based on the qualifications I have. And I think I actually always have a few questions I ask a space when I interview with anywhere, to just kind of less front the situation rather than wait until you're in a workplace and find out like these underlying things are going to come up. Things will come up regardless in any space, but I think it was also one of the reasons why I locked my hair. I was just tired of being the one that was, oh, you're not one of them though, in spaces, and then
Yeah.
them later on feeling differently because they realize my kind of value system. I'm very pro-Black in my kind of way I navigate. But I think I very early had understandings of how like the UK kind of received Black women, especially I have a really close relationship with my grandma and she grew up here in the 40s. And she's told me so many stories of like children running up to her and like touching to see if her skin rubs off kind of level of like racism. So for her and hearing some of the ways she's kind of navigated to not apologize for existing in a space and knowing you're qualified to be there, but also I think I'm quite comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. So like I always get the, oh, you're so well spoken compliment. That's not a compliment. And I will always, once they say things like that, say, you seem shocked. And then see them squirm in their skin. And sometimes they double down. And then you got to then, almost know where people sit and let people show you who they are and act accordingly after that. And I think I stopped apologizing for being in my skin for quite early on, because I was given quite a few like leadership roles quite early in my career as well, and that in itself comes with additional layers of like, you're not only black, you're not only a woman, but you're also now the boss. Like,
They do want to sometimes, bring you down a few
a trillion,
notches, don't they?
a
Yeah, just to
trillion.
remind you. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I think
100%.
it's those kind of navigating the uncomfortable conversations, but with confidence in knowing where I
Yeah,
stood in my own self.
Mhm.
but
But yeah,
it's tiring. It is
it's
tiring. It is
tiring.
tiresome, and I can't. I feel like I always say it, like my nemesis in life. It just seems to be is like middle-aged white women, actually. And it's true. There's no other way to describe it. But it is literally from the one job here to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And it's when you realise as well, after a few years of doing it as well, that it doesn't actually matter what you do or what you don't do. So you could think, okay, well, it's because I did this, so that happened. Then as it goes on, it's like, well, but I didn't. There wasn't anything that you had done, and then this had happened. It literally does not matter. And then you also realize as well that you are very easily the scapegoat for things as well, especially where I'm usually the only black person in my sector, in my kind of area as well. And so whereas where you may be like kind of like celebrated or even like a little bit of hype at the beginning, things like that, then it's just like bring me a siren, like black person over there, let's get her. Do you see what I mean? And that's how it felt all the time, and it is tiresome. And so because it is so tiresome, that's what every time there's another situation, right, where someone is just coming for me, okay, for no reason. And then that night, though, I will go and I will sit on my laptop and I will like carry on doing like trying to set up my own business, which I'm sort of trying to do at the moment. So every time that happens, it spurs me on a little bit because I'm just like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I can't. I don't see where it's going to end. There's not enough money in the world as well. And then even if I love the essence of what I wanted to do originally, but it is long since muddied. That's the thing. So it gets more. It's like less about the actual work and stuff and any bits that you did once enjoy, and then all about navigating whoever's coming for me this week for no reason. And all without leaving my house, I'm not even leaving my house and there's a vendetta. That's how it feels. See, it really is. So it's tiresome. So being black in a workplace as well, if I'm with ADHD, meaning that lots of things that you do will be misinterpreted, misrepresented, all of those kind of things as well. And I guess much like me, you reach a point where you're just like, listen, deuces, I've done my time. I've done the damn time. Gosh, it's tiresome even talking about it, to be fair. It puts me in a bad mood already.
I was just about to say that.
Oh.
And that's part of it. Like, there's one of the things that with the racialized lens on workplaces that I've realized is the emotional burden it takes
It is.
to exist, to double mask. Because I also only recently found out I was diagnosed with ADHD, and the layers of double masking you have to do, where it's not even that you're code switching, it's not that you're like fitting whatever the idea of professional environment is, because we're over professional most of the time.
That's it.
We're overqualified most of the time.
Yeah.
It's more that we're holding this harmful double empathy where I'm having to consider my own feelings and consider your feelings and how your feelings are going to be affected by me as important more than the subjected environment I'm being subject to. And that over time just accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. And even when you're creating your own spaces, it's you're in a wider context always, and that context is going to be influenced, unfortunately, by those boundaries and thinking and thought processes. And unless you have a community of people that
Yeah.
you can like come back to and
Mhm.
recharge with, it's really, really difficult to get that energy back. And
Yeah,
burnout is actually
It's
the
absolutely.
real.
biggest reason why I
It
left that
really is
space.
real.
Burnout's very real in there.
ChiChi, what about
Yeah.
you? Let's hear from you. Have you had experiences when your life in the old 9 to 5? How did you find that as a black woman?
So, this might be controversial, but
Mhm.
my experience is different because I was, born in Nigeria and I lived there till I was 15 years old,
Mhm.
and everybody was black. And I really carried that. And I think part of it is because when I went to the United States, I went pretty much straight to boarding school, which is very international. And I had a hard time connecting with the black kids there, because they grew up in America with all the racialized stuff. And I felt more
Mhm.
comfortable with white and Asian people. Um, so I've carried that, and I see it as a form of privilege. I really do. And now there are other immigrants who have grown up in, where everybody was the same, like Nigeria, wherever, but they still have a lot of racialized stuff that they notice. And I have not noticed a lot. Now, not saying that it hasn't happened to me, and I'm thinking of a particular job where the last day job I had, I was like, wow, there is actual racism here. And it was in Washington D.C., a government organization, and a lot of the lawyers were white men, and a lot of the staff, assistants and people like that were black, and mostly black women, but there was a black man, and it was just bad. It was bad. And however, apart from that job, I haven't noticed a lot of stuff, and I've often been seen as like a diva, which already is racism because I act like a white woman, like I really do, like like I remember, like I'm crazy, but I think part of this is my neurodivergence because I don't give a fuck, like I'm not cowering around that stuff. Now, I also think it's because I'm also queer, and being lesbian has really been the area I've been oppressed the most by my culture and and
Mhm.
black. So it's an interesting mix. But for anybody who might have a similar experience, I know it's not the typical experience, but sorry,
Mhm.
I so yeah, I haven't. So what I remember this job I was in, and so he was like my bosses. So my boss's boss, like the freaking head of the legal department, he happened to be a pianist, and I'm a singer, classical singer, and we ended up, collaborating on a concert together at his like big wonderful house. It was for the staff, it was for the people who work there, no partners. And I was like, my partner is coming. Like, I was just so like, no, this is what's going to happen. Like, and, and this happened in that racist job where like, there were like literally rats in the like, on the floor, it was crazy. And they were telling us to come into the office, and there were rats in the vents and rat droppings. And I was like, no, I'm working from home. Like my whole team, mostly black people, were there, and I was like, I'm working from home. Like I sent letters. I'm like, I'm not doing this shit. So yeah, like
No, not at
I
all.
did eventually resign. I don't think I was definitely not, especially in that job. No, I was definitely not like celebrated. My coworkers were like, "Oh, that's great," and I was like, I'm not a slave. I'm sorry. Fuck these
Mhm.
people. Like I'm not waiting for white people to give me permission. I'm sorry. Like I can't with that. Like,
Mhm.
We have an ability to spot a pattern quick, like quick time. And because we are able to also very quickly pick up on behaviors, patterns, the way people are, sometimes we also then choose to like, oh, I can navigate this. I know what I'm dealing with. So like we have both choices available to us very early. And because we have that sensitivity to kind of read situations and people and patterns and spaces very well, we're always presented with those two options, and then neither. I don't think it's situation based whether we stay or go. Do you know what I mean?
I have this perception at work that like I'll speak my mind, I'll say stuff, but there's so many things that I don't speak on because I know it's me look bad, or I don't want this perception of like the angry black woman, or oh, why is she picking up on blah blah blah. But there's things at times I'm literally just like, I just really have to just hold my space here, because like I do enjoy like the tasks I have to do. I work for a good practice, like a prestigious practice, all of that stuff. And I'm kind of just like, in the world of architects, like there's not that many black women in the space. Like people will go in and will study it and then they get out or they don't make it. Even when I started, there was only 5 out of 180. And I'm the only one that's 5 black people, men and women, when I started 13 years ago out of 180, and I'm the only one that is actually a qualified architect. Everybody else is doing something else. So I'm kind of like, you know what? That's just in one university. Like, so I'm kind of like, actually, the space, like the architectural world is so small that it's kind of like if you rock the boat to, that's what like everyone will find out. I'm not looking to like blacklist myself, so to speak. It seems a bit weird saying that, but it's like actually, it's not necessarily about picking my battles, but if I know there's someone on a team that speaks to everybody rudely, I know, okay, they're not taking it out on me specifically, but I know I'm going to feel it harder because I've got ADHD, or I know I'm going to feel it harder because I'm black. I know that realistically, if I then speak out against it, that's then going to be a bad reflection on me because, well, they speak to everybody else like that. So why can't you just deal with it? And it's like, actually, I shouldn't have to deal with this at work. I should just be able to crack on and not have people speak to me like shit. But instead of being like, actually, I'm going to be really outspoken about this one particular thing or this one particular person, what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat you with the same level of respect. But instead of me popping off publicly in front of everyone, I'm not going to say anything and I'm not going to do the thing you want me to do because I know that's going to irritate you more. Because now, how are you going to get the work done? Because I'm not having to speak to me like that.
Yeah,
And it's all
that's
the
it.
people that I've seen that have been like effing and jeffing at other members of staff that I'm like, oh, I'm working on a team. I already know going into it if there is a high pressure situation or if we've got a deadline and they're going to get stressed out and start barking orders. I already know I'm clocking out. I will be doing something else. You can do that on your own, but I'm not doing it. And but I feel like I've got a privilege in that there's lots of teams at my place. So it's like, and all the teams are kind of like their own mini practice almost. Everyone
Okay.
works completely differently. So it's this kind of thing where it's like, oh, if I don't work well with that team, I know I can just speak to the partner that I'm assigned to and be like, I'm having some issues here. And I don't know if it's because of me having ADHD and like the way that it's working, or if it's just 2 personalities not gelling together, but it can't run.
It can't
And then
run.
I get moved to a different team. But because of that, then it means that there's some teams that do think, oh, she's really difficult to work with. Well, it's not that I'm really difficult to work with. It's just that I'm not doing this. The way you're managing is not gelling with the way my brain works. And I shouldn't have to readjust myself and how my brain works to fit your rigidity,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Let's get into, I guess, the creative advantage then we have with our
Yeah.
ADHD. So we
Okay.
choose Taylor.
Okay. Before we get into the hard bits, which we've already kind of scratched the surface on, and trust me, we need to talk about why ADHD brains are genuinely, legitimately good at creative entrepreneurship. Not in the ADHD is a superpower Instagram way, but in the real evidence-based lived experience way. But here's the truth. There are specific things our brains do that make us exceptional at certain types of creative work. And when we're in an executive dysfunction spiral, we forget that. Research shows that people with ADHD often score higher on creative thinking tasks, especially divergent thinking, the ability to generate multiple solutions to a problem. Our brains make connections faster and in more unusual ways. In creative entrepreneurship, that's the gold. The ability to pivot, to see opportunities others miss, to come up with 10 different approaches when one doesn't work. That's not despite ADHD, that's because of it. Niquelle, what's something your ADHD brain does that makes you genuinely good at the creative work that you do?
I think that word pivot is a really key word that have used in my whole kind of career. And also I like it because it's also a basketball term, and that's like a sport that I loved in my life. But the idea that we constantly have choice and autonomy is something that I think my brain thrives off of. Having the ability to choose and kind of make decisions that could play out in several directions. And it also helps me, it gives me an endorphin drive every time I'm able to kind of make a decision for myself and allow that to become reality. I work a lot of the time with ideas that don't exist in the world and then bringing that to fruition. So I don't usually have templates and baselines to go by. We're creating things from imagination a lot of the time. And I think that creative problem solving is something that stimulates my interest. I really like having something that provides a level of challenge because I can very easily get bored of a thing that feels quite repetitive or similar all the time. I like routine somewhat, and I do think that's like the autistic traits that I have, but I think there's elements of structure that I need to be able to then have in a space that I'm working. So like there's a specific working environment that I prefer. Like I prefer natural light when I'm working. I prefer having a place that I can move if I need to, and like my lunchtime be when I need it to be, and I can constantly snack all day if I need to. And those kinds of things in my environment are really essential. But I think in terms of the work itself, it has to have a level of variation. Like I can't do the same thing every single day. That will bore me to death. I have to have a level of like creative problem solving and stretch and challenge in it. My brain's really good under pressure. Like I don't mind the lastminute.com random things changing and finding how to put out a fire. Like it thrives and is amazing at that. But I'm also really good at kind of like risk planning. So a downfall of being an overthinker is that we like sometimes catastrophize. But in the field that I'm working in, which is usually you like thinking about people management and young people specifically, there's a lot of safeguards and a lot of risk involved in taking care of them. And to be a brain that thinks about every potential eventuality that could occur means the assessment of risks are massively minimized, and those kinds of areas are really kind of done really thoroughly. And sometimes at times that I'm like, how are you not thinking about this on like organization levels? And you're like, what? And you almost think you're like the stickler for some of these rules. But it's like that overthinking I've learned to really embrace as a part of just being thoughtful. And it's not that I'm overthinking. Maybe you've underthought, and that's okay, And yeah, I think I allow my brain to go into overdrive, but then the rigidity sometimes of like working hours. I know there's certain points in a month because of just having a womb and menstruation. My energy levels are going to mean the dopamine is non-existent. So in that period, trust me, if I'm in a workplace that I'm allowed to kind of work to the timescales that my body allows and honor that, in that 1 week that I will do, let's say 50% that I would normally do, I will do 200% in the weeks when I'm in my spring and summer periods of my period, and that kind of cycle to kind of keep the brain going. But it is finding the workspace that kind of allows you to kind of honor how your brain really thrives.
Yeah, I get that. ChiChi, same question, but also, do you believe it about yourself?
Yeah, that I didn't understand the do I believe it? Do I believe what?
I assume it's kind of like, do you believe that there is something that makes you genuinely good at the creative work
Oh,
you do? Like,
okay. Yes, I mean, I think, thanks for clarifying.
that is
I
what.
do think that, yes. And I think the thing about my ADHD, like ADHD brain,
Mhm.
is I am really good at chaos. I'm not saying like when there's a crisis, not chaos. When there's a
Mhm.
crisis, my brain really snaps on. And then when I'm at deadlines, that also my brain really like focuses and having hyper focus as well.
Mhm.
That's part of my neurodivergence. And I think my energy comes from my neurodivergence. Of course, it's also part of my personality and all of that. But I think part of it is my neurodivergence and my excitability and enthusiasm and um, almost like childlike joy sometimes. Like, I think,
Mhm.
and being unashamed about it, I think that is part of my neurodivergence. My overthinking, my oversharing, and I like what was said, like maybe people are underthinking and undersharing. So I think all of that helps me in my business, especially as an an inspirational speaker, because there is my business is all about sharing myself, sharing the truths. And that's awesome for a neurodivergent person because I don't already fit into the matrix in society. So it's perfect that I am who I am, partly due to my neurodivergence. And so I get to share that and hopefully inspire and help people. So yeah, yeah.
You go on to about talking about what actually happens when ADHD brains are locked in. So you get an idea, interest kicks in, and suddenly you've built an entire website, you've designed the branding, you've written months of content, and set up systems in a matter of days. And you're not forcing productivity, but you're riding momentum. And this is one of the reasons that ADHD brains often do well in entrepreneurship. So when something matters, when it sparks interest, you can move fast, faster than people expect, faster than most workplaces allow. And that speed is not chaos, it is alignment.
So, Niquelle, have you ever had those phases where you built something way faster than you thought was possible?
100 trillion%. The last project I worked on was a school from scratch, and that, yeah, I came in post September 2023, and the school opened in September 25. Um, yeah, and to do everything from zero in a theatre space that traditionally doesn't host full-time education, and it be a college, and it be a hip hop theatre environment that we successfully also had to recruit for. I had to also hire my team, all of those really big moving parts, and create a curriculum and all of that from scratch. It was a big undertaking, and it also kind of allowed for so much like big picture thinking of like how can we challenge certain policies, strategies, all of those things. But I do
Mhm.
think where it came to that kind of social justice thing in me, that is a real driving value of mine. I really cared about disruption
Mhm.
and putting in a pipeline that didn't traditionally exist and giving an opportunity to a thing that a little polymath ADHD child who wants to do art and wants to dance and wants to do music and wants to do drama could have a course that could
Mhm.
hold them. Definitely kind of fed parts of my younger self and children that I could see falling through certain gaps, but also
Mhm.
the pace at which we had to work kept my brain so like
Yeah. Locked
stimulated in a way that was new, refreshing. You know, if you ever want to do something fast, do it with a great team of women. I will always advocate for that. If it, I only had a team of four,
in.
and four women who are phenomenal at what they do, and the speed of it was definitely attributed to my ADHD, but it was also, and I have to caveat this, it's also how I found out I had ADHD. That environment, plus all the other things I was still doing, because of the cultural context that I was sitting in.
Mhm.
If it was just doing the project I was working on, that would have been fine. But I think the overload of all that extra tiresome work and navigating the isms and schisms of the people of the theatre space, it overloaded my system to the point that actually I became quite burnt out. And that's actually how I found out I had ADHD, because I was then like, yo, I'm not adulting anymore. What's going on?
Yeah.
But that pace, I think, when it's healthily maintained, that was the sweet spot for me. That was like all the things I needed, but it's also, it has to be in the right context for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I guess from the outside, people often see that speed and assume that's your baseline. They think that is just how you always work and that there is a misunderstanding. And that's where misunderstandings start. ChiChi, have you ever had clients or collaborators see you in hyper-focus mode and assume that's the level of output that's always available?
Not that I can think of. It's more me being me starting things way too close to the deadline, and then the next time doing it again. So I think I'm the one that forgets that I cannot maintain this level of output, and it's not on purpose, but it keeps happening, and it's gotten worse ever since I hit burnout, because I hit burnout twice. Major twice. And I've noticed that deadlines are not as scary as they used to be, so I don't start earlier. So that is what I've noticed with me, with not starting in enough time and then pushing through. And procrastination is one of my biggest challenges, and time blindness. So that is, I'm forgetting that this is not something I can maintain, and I will do it again and again and again. So, but there's a lot of self-forgiveness and just, self-acceptance that I practice, because this is me, and I have not arrived in totally accepting and forgiving myself, but I still, it's a practice. So yeah. So it's probably me that creates the unrealistic expectations so far.
Yeah.
And
what is important to say here is that ability to build fast is a strength. It is one of the reasons so many ADHD creative and entrepreneurs bring powerful ideas into the world. The issue is not that we work in bursts. The issue is when systems, clients, or even when ourselves pretend that those bursts are supposed to be constant. That's the part where the hyperfocus fades, energy dips, and overwhelm creeps in. Not because the business is failing, but because intense bursts of work take a toll on the brain. For a lot of ADHD entrepreneurs, the crash does not come from the creative work. It comes from the admin, the emails, the follow-ups, and the constant switching between tasks. That is not laziness. It is executive function fatigue. So, Niquelle, what parts of running a business drain you the fastest once the initial excitement wears off?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I would say the administrative tasks that are kind of quite mundane. So not all administrative tasks. Like I love an email. I love like a system for things. I actually live on Excel just optionally for my life. But I think there's a lot of kind of bureaucratic practices that are unnecessary for me, in terms of, actually not even for me, they're unnecessary. I think there's a lot of things that people avoid in terms of just actually having built interpersonal relationships in a lot of working environments, and they then fill those gaps for connecting.
When burnout or overwhelm shows up, what helps you reset or keep things moving even slowly? ChiChi.
Thanks. I do want to answer the other question though about
Oh, yeah.
what birds me out, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's the actual continuing of the work. I hate that word consistency. So I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. So I will do it, and I'm so excited. Like this just happened. Here's an example. So I did a virtual keynote concert. So I do keynote concert instead of keynote speeches, and that was great. Now I need to prepare for an in-person one in March, And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and my business is very event based. So it's getting through like, okay, now I'm in this down phase and like still working on the things I need to work on. And I will say this about admin tasks, sometimes irrelevant or not that important admin tasks are a wonderful way to procrastinate from the things I actually should be doing. There's a lot of working around my business, like finding the right like color for my brand when I need to be working on my speech. Like, so there's a lot of that. So that's the first one. And then when burnout or overwhelm, what helps me reset. I think when I've had my major burnouts, I literally just had to stop. I had to stop and I had to like take time off and stop. Now with smaller burnouts and also with the major burnout, I had to go into treatment. Like I went into, in the US, it's called partial hospitalization program, PHP, whatever. So that helped me, and you know, therapy and just stopping. Now with more minor experiences of burnout, resting, of course, stopping, things like I do a lot of somatic work, which are gentle movements to help release tension and trauma from the body. And, you know, of course, my meds and drinking water, therapy, all of that helps. Getting sleep, which is really difficult for me still, like going to bed. But the more I can rest, and I also do a form of like meditation. So all of that, and I do energy work, and all of those things help me. And also practicing lowering my expectations because, and I do want to say this, like ADHD is different for different people. My ADHD is different from other people's ADHD and vice versa. For me, I have more combined type, which is inattentive presentation and hyperactive presentation. And somebody like a family member who also has ADHD and diagnosed, they're more hyperactive. So they're always doing, starting businesses, and everything is a business and making money. And I can compare myself to them and be like, well, we both have ADHD. Why can't I go? Because I'm a very like sprint and drift. That's what I heard. Sprint, I gotta sprint, and I gotta, you know, that's my quote unquote consistency. And that practice of like, no, this is just who I am, and this is how my ADHD shows up. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how I work, and planning things that that accommodate the way I work, which is why my business also works for me because it is event-based. So I do have time to rest in between. So yeah.
No, that's really good. There's a lot of things that you said that really resonate with the way I am. And also things that have been mentioned on previous episodes, like the somatic stuff that you do. But also I think like the idea of lowering the expectations of the workload is really, really important because everyone will have completely different, what's the word? Not representation, but they will
Like
it is.
presentations.
Yes, that's the one.
That's
Almost there.
presentation.
On that down. But yeah, because everyone presents differently, it's about understanding where you are within that spectrum, I guess. So yeah, moving on because I know we are short for time. Most business advice is neurotypical cosplay, rigid routines, perfect content calendars, be consistent. What have you engineered to fit your brain rather than fight it? ChiChi.
Well, you started with that, my dreaded word, be consistent. So it's that, what does consistency look like for me? And this, you know, so like I have this t-shirt idea that says, I am consistent, but consistent is crossed out to say I am persistent. Because for me, I keep going. You know, maybe it's not once a week or every day, and it's not, but I keep going. So if I can look at my patterns over like a month or 3 months or a year, I have moved forward. And so that is my consistency, quote unquote, like, you know, and it doesn't necessarily look like, and I love that term, neurotypical cosplay. Oh my God, I'm stealing that. Thank you to whoever wrote that. But it doesn't look like neurotypical cosplay. Like, for example, my mentor asked us to do a video, 30 like a 30 daily videos, right? A video a day for 30 days.
Mhm.
And I did it for 3 days, and I'm like, no, like I'm on video number 6, and it's like 2 weeks have passed. But what I'm committing to is doing 30 videos. I'm doing 30 videos. So even if I finish them in December, I'm doing 30 videos because that makes more sense for me. Because the whole daily thing, that's just not how I roll. I don't know what is happening day to day. Today I have energy, tomorrow I don't. Today I have energy and then I get enough rest and I'm great tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm like so tired I can't do anything. So it's like, again, self-acceptance and knowing that how I work can also lead to success. Because I think that ultimate fear of like, and I'm falling into this, and I can still fall into this, that if I don't do it this way, I will never be successful. I will never make money. I will never whatchamacallit. And I've really been practicing, and the energy work and spiritual work has really helped me. Like, actually, it's the way I'm designed. Like, my soul, my silliness, my like all over the placeness is actually what is going to lead me to success. And I will end this by saying, when I get like, no, I can't, I need to do it the way society says. I have personal evidence of doing it the way society says and failing. So I tried it their way. I tried it. And I ended up crashing and losing everything after many, many years of trying. So I'm actually going to do it my way and the way that aligns with my ADHD and neurodivergence and all the things and my soul. So
I mean, I could maybe offer what I've learned to like study myself on. I track my month, my like menstrual cycle month, and then kind of energy map where my energy is the best in the month. Because I can schedule my own weeks. Most weeks I would try and always have a midweek break. I don't tend to work Mondays and Fridays because I work weekends. Because I need that accumulative rest. If I have like a late night, I can't do an early morning following, so that I can like get that rest double over. I overtime block, so I always give myself half-hour buffers around whatever I block, because I know it's always going to take me time to start the thing and that decompression from the thing, the transition time. So I'll overblock those bits. And then in terms of just like, I guess I'm also time blind, so I have a sticky note for everything. So I have digital sticky notes, I have physical sticky notes, and I have reminders on things to kind of preempt when I need to do a thing. I don't like the phone reminders, don't work for me. I need a physical, it's in my way if it's something that is like super pressing, before it's urgent. Because if I'll wait till the deadline otherwise. But I also like to kind of long-term plan. So I split my year into seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and then I project things work-wise, because obviously the entrepreneurial life is more like contract by contract, project by project. And I'll preempt things that I would like to happen, even if they're not necessarily contracted or whatever. And I'll list all of those things, list all of the fees I'd want, and I'll almost give myself buffers of like margins I'd want to meet financially. Of the season. And it has in every expense I have, like including some like extra buffer for just lifestyle bantering, because I know I'm gonna dabble and extra takeaway there, extra whatever there, like food I will never scrounge on. So I give myself the extra financial buffer of expenses, and that's calculated as an expense even if I don't spend it. And then I know how much wriggle room I have to like take an extra day off, or because our sick days were not paid if we're freelance. So it then lets me know. A figure I calculated when I think it was like early 20s was like, how many days in a year do you want to work? How many days do you not want to work? Take those days away. Then give yourself caveat days, take those days away, and then that figure you want to make divided by the amount of days you got left. And if you do that, that's your fee for the day. Set your half day at like 60% of a day, not 50%, so you always make a bit more to buffer if you only do a half day of work. So yeah, there's quite a few like little hacks I've helped myself with.
That's so cool.
Have
I've
any
always
of you
wanted
tried
to.
the body doubling that our community
ADHD Babes
does?
offers.
Babes, yeah. Has anyone tried that?
Yeah, I was going to say that body doubling, I meant to say this has been really helpful for me. I bought a body double through ADHD Babes, and I now host body doubling because what really helps me is having to show up, not for myself, like, but for other people, but then it's for me. It's all for me. I even started another body doubling community in ADHD Babes and also outside of ADHD Babes weekly that I host with my Zoom account because I know I need it. And so, and I have other people to back me up if needed, but that body doubling has really helped me. But I find that it helps the most when I have to show up because I'm hosting it or I'm somehow responsible for it. That really helps me. And then when I'm there, that container, eventually I'll do some work, and I forgot to say that. Yes. Because Niquelle, I do want to say, like, I love that you're able to plan so well. That's amazing. And things like planning and sticky notes used to work for me before burnout. Once I hit burnout, it was like none of that shit gonna really work. Like a little bit, but not like before. So having other people, and that's why I'm also paying for this expensive mastermind group with my mentor, and I'm mostly paying because I want some quote unquote authority, even though he's not authority, just to be like, do this by this time. It helps me, that really helps me. Yeah, and I do it around the time, not perfect. Like I told you with the 30 days and 30 videos and 30, I was supposed to do it daily. No, I got to accommodate myself. But in general, it's going to happen,
Yes, got you.
Like I try to remind myself, like, you're paying all this money to help you make money for your business because I need to accommodate for my ADHD. Like some ADHDers don't need all this extra guidance and what they call it, like support from other people, but I do. I learned through painful experience. I do. So I really lean into that. So I forgot to share all that. Yeah, that's been big for me.
That is fantastic advice, actually. Might be better to, again, like stop trying to kind of fix yourself and then fix whatever you need, I guess, around it, and then see if that. And I feel like as well, we do have, like, if I get stuck on like something small like admin, like I would say to one of my friends, like who is fine with doing stuff like that, I'm like, can you please just finish this damn form for me so it can move on? Instead of me taking the next 6 months, like trying to publish a Google form, like it's crazy, like how much it can take. And the thing is that if anyone else asked me to do the same, I'll be like, I'll do it for you. I'm happy to do it for everyone else but myself, actually. It's very hard. It's very hard, actually. So there is something in that as well with embracing your tribe, your community, I guess, like something around that as well.
No, totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah,
I
so
really
good
do
to
believe.
know.
I really do believe we ADHDers are geniuses for each other.
100%.
Like, oh my God, we are so
100%.
good at each
Yeah,
other. And I'm
100%.
trying to figure out how do we harness that, body
We can't
doubling
do
is
that.
great
I
for
can't
that.
do it.
But
Yeah. But we are like definitely 100%.
I want to share a quote from this a money coach that I'm taking her course, and has ADHD. She's a multimillionaire, and I love what she said. She, entrepreneur. She said, I have learned to optimize for my strengths and outsource the rest. And I really love that, and that is what I'm practicing. I use Fiverr a lot because it's a, great way to get, admins and stuff like that for cheaper, like website help, all this stuff, like you said with the Google sheet. No, Fiverr, because there are people out of Nigeria or Philippines, or, that is just cheaper, like to hire them, but $10 an hour means a lot more to them, than it would to an American. So I use Fiverr a lot, and I have 2 virtual assistants right now, and one of my virtual assistants, like literally to prepare for my virtual keynote, I had him like get on Zoom with me and just stay there. Just stay there. Just stay there.
Yeah.
You know? So
yeah.
that has helped me, like optimizing for my strengths and outsourcing as much as I can.
Outsourcing, yeah. Okay. So guys, I think just to round up the episode, let's recap what was spoken about. So for many ADHD creatives, entrepreneurship works not because we suddenly become more disciplined, but because we can stop fighting how we actually function. So when the business is designed around energy, creativity, and reality, not perfection, things start to click. Yes, it can be chaotic. Yes, there are cycles. And still, people with ADHD build powerful, innovative, sustainable businesses every day. So if you are thinking about starting something, you're not behind, you are not unrealistic, and you are not broken. You might just need a business that fits you.
So yeah, thank you so much, ChiChi and Niquelle, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to chat to you both and learn more about you. Please would you let our listeners know where they can connect with you? So any websites or social handles, Instagram, whatever, all of that stuff, if you partake.
Yeah, sure. So ChiChi Anu, and you can find me on YouTube, where a lot of my videos and other silliness and stuff will be, at ChiChi Anu. That's ChiChiEnu, and also other platforms, same name, at ChiChi Anu. So Instagram, TikTok, and so that's where you can find me, and hope to connect with people.
For me, Niquelle, so NIQUELLE _L on all the socials. But I also, on my website, I have a connect box, which I'm really open to new organizations and creatives that want to kind of dabble outside of the normal kind of environment of working. So if you type in my first name and my surname, LATOUCHE.com, it will come up with that. And you can see all the various paths that I dabble in, and if there's anything that sparks your interest, please do get in touch.
So if you found a sense of home here at ADHD Babes, please consider supporting us. That could mean signing up as a member, donating, or even just sharing this podcast with your people. So every bit helps us keep on doing this beautiful work.
Join the conversation on our Discord or WhatsApp group for members. Follow us on socials. We now have our very own Insta page for the podcast, which is at ADHDbabes.pod, as well as at ADHDbabes for more general information. Subscribe to our YouTube for the video version of this podcast. And most importantly, stay connected. We're building this together. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. If you're a Black woman or non-binary person and need help and support in managing your ADHD or advice on diagnosis, please visit ADHDbabes.com. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. Join us in 2 weeks for a new episode. Until then, all the love from the ADHD Babes team.
Just as I am, can you take me just as I am?